Oh, the one in the back there.
It's not really a question, it's more of a thank you. I believe that the artist predicts what the audience will see, and you guys nailed it. I appreciate the fact that you bring people in and you invoke their ability to do the same thing. You see them tell their story and add their little magic to it, and you hear them and you invite them to do something more with it. And you did that for me, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm actually a little nervous to be up here asking questions in case one of them rubs you the wrong way. My name is Lily Fizzy. I work at Sony Pictures Entertainment Television. I work in business affairs. If I've done a deal for one of you, I apologize. It's never personal. I also teach entertainment law at Arizona State University College of Law. Because there are not enough lawyers in Hollywood, so I just want to make sure I can bring some more from Arizona. But enough about me. I have the privilege of asking these two gentlemen some questions about their films, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. So I'm going to start with Michael. Okay. Actually, no, I'm not going to start with this one. I'm going to start... All right, I want to know about growing up. Did you guys make movies and films while you were growing up together? Is this something that happened later in life? Tell us how. Did you find yourself doing this earlier in life?
So earlier in life, we got our parents to enroll us in a lot of theater camps and acting classes, and we actually used to write a lot of monologues and put it up around Mesa, where we grew up in Arizona. And there would be times where we would actually be at grocery stores and people would recognize us from our monologues that we had written. So yeah, we never were making our own stuff. We were usually just in some theater production somewhere.
Nice. So no home videos that we're gonna surface up
No
here.
home videos.
Jaric directing.
The love of film came from acting, and then obviously, when you're 6'10", you're gonna get typecasted heavy. So maybe you should focus behind the camera. But the love of it went going to movies when we were younger and just acting. So,
What do you think is the most difficult part about working with your brother?
anyone that knows us, we're kind of very much the same in a way. We went to the same high school, went to the same college, got the same degree, same law school. We were taking classes in law school together. So we're just very close, and we don't really argue. And if we do argue, we're lawyers. We litigate it. We get it over with. No, we don't really on the creative process. We're a good synergy. We don't really fight, and if we do fight, then it's a healthy discussion in terms of how do we move forward with whatever the disagreement is. So we don't really I don't know. It's 1A, 1B. So.
Which actually brings me to my next question, which is, how do you think being a lawyer has approached your movie making as a director, as a writer, as actors? How do you think that skill has changed the way you approach making a movie?
I'll start because it's easy for me, at least. Communication is key as a director. So just if you're in the courtroom and you have to communicate your ideas to a jury to make them believe your position, it's the same kind of thing with communicating to the actors to get them to do what you want them to do. So going to law school and writing and then just talking and being able to speak, it helps because when you're on set, a lot of people are looking for you for guidance. At least as a director, they kind of want to know, what are we doing here? And so being able to communicate and relay what you want from them, I think just creates a better product. So
Yeah, jumping off that, even putting this together, this was a 2.5 year process, right? So corralling all the necessary pieces from our Jack and Bill, our cinematography team, to approaching Formosa, to approaching Company 3 and Joe's, my idol, my Hollywood idol. We got to work with my idol. It's insane to think about. It was all pitches. And all these formal pitches were kind of when I put a formal business contract together. There are points you need to hit. You need to say why they want to work with you, what it'll entail, et cetera, and you put your best foot forward and pray for the best.
Jaric, at the beginning of the movie, there's this quote of yours that we later learn is your quote. So there's a difference between being sick and being ambitious. I was not sick, I was simply ambitious. Why this quote, and what does it really mean to you?
So the person you saw there is a multiverse is big nowadays. So like this version of me is a lot more unstable in terms of the questions that I do get constantly in real life. So from this person's perspective, this variant's perspective, the idea is that like in his head, he's not sick. He's just ambitious. His whole thing is to try to kill a narrative while creating a new one. And obviously what he does is ridiculous. Who does that? But again, when you, from a very young age, are just kind of, it's the same repetitive thing, day in, day out, and you have ambitions and you have goals that aren't with that realm of, do you play basketball, all that stuff, it could get to you. And so when I first thought of this film, and I may be going too long, so I'll speed it up, but essentially, when I first thought of Cut, it was meant to be creators, not us, not me and Mike. It was just meant to be the idea of two creators trying to make this crazy film to make it big. And the idea was to touch on what will you do to go, anything to go viral to make it big. And then when I kind of sat with it, I'm like, oh, well, me and Mike are kind of in that same position in terms of two creators trying to make it. And I'm like, okay, again, the love of acting, let's put ourselves in front of it. If we're putting ourselves in front of it, what makes it unique to us? And I'm like, damn it, the height thing. I'm like, okay, so we could use that. And so once that kind of came into it, I'm like, okay, if we're going to use the height thing, like, we have to go there. And, I sat with this idea for like a month. I didn't tell him. Because I'm like, I kind of want to do this. It's kind of like, it's just a lot to kind of play director and then play someone like that. But I was like, I like it. I'm the type of person where I like darker stories. I like more unsettling stories. So unfortunately, my love for the darker stuff just involved us this time. So that's kind of,
And
I think that answered your question.
yeah, we got it. We got a good idea about it. This one really kind of goes to Michael, and I know we saw sort of where you guys started with Alone, and then how it transitioned more deeply into Cut. So where do you think your writing style has transitioned in this path?
That's a good question. Wow. When I first started writing, like late college, early law school, as he will attest to, I wrote very positive stories because if you see me around, you usually see me smiling, laughing. That's just who I am. Life is funny to me. So you write what you know, write how you feel. So a lot of my earlier writings were like that. And then as me and him started collaborating on like early stuff we were writing, like later law schools, as I was actually getting good at writing, I'm like, oh, I'm actually good at having dark undertones. The stronger my antagonist is, the better the story was becoming.
I dragged him down. Too happy.
Yeah, so as I got more like psychological thrill with it, and obviously Alone's like sci-fi, psychological, suddenly people were talking to me like, yo, this is really good. And I was like, okay, let me lean in. And I super leaned in. So I would say started off maybe dark comedies, and now I'm very much in the psychological thriller, sci-fi, Denis Villeneuve, Christopher Nolan like lane, and I love it.
Do you think Jaric's influenced that, or is that something you came to on your own?
He definitely influenced it, but at the end of the day, when I'm like, because I write really fast, it's just, I don't really sleep much, so I'm just writing. When I like look at it the next day, it feels impactful. And in the era of where there's a million things you could be watching, from YouTube to the streaming services to on and on and on, things that drag you in, that's really what leaves the most impact. So I think that's why I do it.
This is more as just a generic question of where do you see yourself in 5 years down the road, and your next sort of project? Where's the vision going?
I don't know. I mean, like, it was quite a jump from Alone to Cut. And so we're just always trying to one-up ourselves in terms of the stories we tell. And we have a lot of stories kind of in the bank, so to speak, that we've been working on that just require more resources or just require more, more stuff to accomplish. So like in 5 years, I mean, big budget features, you know? I mean, you know, we've taken the step, the right steps, leaps, right? It kind of matches. Like, if I was to take a step on a stairwell, like people are doing like doubles, I'm doing like 5. You know what I'm saying? So it's representative in terms of just, I don't know, our films, like it's just big leaps. So the next project or projects we want to, you know, whether, you know, we call studio home or, you know, it's big budget features. But I still kind of like touch on this. Like I don't want to get away from like the unsettling, you know, like I'm not here at this mind space currently to tell like feel good stories. Maybe it'll come, but not now.
And this is actually another question for you, which is there a style of director or a director that really has given you the inspiration to tell the story from a different perspective?
Christopher Nolan. I like the way, like, just to answer really quickly, like, it's like a puzzle for his films. And as you watch it, it's not linear. And, like, when we had, like, 10 versions of this film. And the first couple versions was very linear. Like, it's not like this at all. And then just what's interesting to me is not giving you, because everyone here is smart, so not giving you guys kind of the motivations of the character. And letting it kind of piece together, and then you're like, okay, cool, like that's what we saw before, and that's how it's all related. So Christopher Nolan, just in terms of the way he like presents things, and just the assumption that the audience is smart and doesn't need things spelled out to them. So that's the inspiration I get.
And this one's for Michael. This is several different questions. So tell me about writing and acting and then taking direction from your brother. Like how do you feel when you've written something, then you're acting it and it doesn't work the way you had envisioned or had pictured it, either because the director has a different vision or you yourself just didn't see it playing out that way?
Yeah, we've gone through this a lot. So my character said Jaric has a visual mind. He does, and I say that a lot. I'll write something in a vein where I think, okay, this could work at a whatever X amount of budget. I'm talking about like other projects we're working on, right? And then I'll go to Jaric, I'll present to him, and he'll be like, oh, I see it like this. I'll go back, redraft, go back to him. Essentially, just because I write it a certain way, he has to be able to envision it. Because the second he can envision it, he can go pitch it out to 1 billion people and he can make them see it. That's his gift. He can make people enter his head and then they see what he's seeing. And sometimes the way I write doesn't equate to his vision. So we have like a redraft process of me like showing him stuff. And luckily I write fast so I can get it back to him the next day, etc. But taking direction, this is probably a huge shout out to my mom and dad, mostly my mom. The reason we don't fight is the way we grew up. Like, the 2 times I can remember fighting, like NCAA, like 03 basketball game, he threw a controller at me, and that was like, video games were gone. I
don't remember that.
Like, that was the last time we fought, because when we fight, our mom just make it 1,000 times worse. So we were like, okay, let's just get along. So now, you know, jumping 15, 20 years into the future, when Jaric gives me like a direction to do on set, you know, before set, whatever, I take it to heart and then I see how it plays, and then when I'm like watching it back on playback, whatever, it like 99% of the times it works. And it does help that we grew up so close that what he's saying might have already been churning somewhere or vice versa, but I don't know, we have a weirdly, really good synergy, and that seems to come up when he's directing me for acting or when we're going through our writing process.
And what do you think has been the most difficult part of this whole process? Maybe something that doesn't come easy to you. Either one of you can take that one.
I'm kind of like a perfectionist in the way that like, and we kind of used to joke about this, and it's not that funny, I guess, but like, I was like, we were in post, and like resources already been spent, and time's been spent. And I used to kind of joke like, if this is not like how I like, it's never coming out. And I think it's like, it could be a hindrance, because I think sometimes I could live with something so long, when in reality, it's just like, you gotta push forward. And that's the beauty of having him, because like, he's that type where it's just like, hey, like, we gotta get this done. Like, let's come to a decision and move on. Sometimes I could kind of just circle and be like, let's do it like this, or like this, and just like, things won't move per se. So that's good of having him, because if it was just me solo, you get like a movie like every 15 years. But so that's like, and I mean, I don't know, if you had told me like 5 years ago that you were gonna be sitting in front of how many people and watching what you just did is your character, I'd be like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like, so I think there's been an evolution in terms of just me being comfortable in my own skin, and that's an element of this film, obviously. So I think there's just been like an evolution, and that's my biggest accomplishment over anything. Just kind of being more comfortable and just as a creator to do something like this. So.
And what do you think is, I think you may have answered it already, but the true passion genre that you, given unlimited resources, would be where you saw yourself, both of you as a writer and then also as a director and maybe as actors as well?
Psychological thriller, guaranteed. 100%. Psychological thriller. It's just such a, like, again, I touched upon this in the era of you grab your phone and there's a million things you could literally watch. What do people gravitate to? I mean, you have your favorites, you have your friends, you have your Family Guy, etc. But also things that make you think, make you uncomfortable, make you question maybe parts of your own life. And psychological thriller very much is a vein that stretches into all those domains.
What is your favorite scene from, let's do Cut? And maybe why?
Do you have one? Okay, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, coming off the first film critic, which is, Jaric used to call it the anchors, like the anchors of the film. We cut in and out of the film critic, right? After the first film critic scene, when it zooms in, pans in on Jaric's face, and then it cuts to the theater, then you have the bright red stage. Oh my God, and the music playing. The amount of times I've watched that scene, it's probably close to 1,000. I'm not even kidding. Like, the music, the red, the glow as Jaric goes on stage. I remember when Jack sent me the clip after we had filmed that scene that day. I was freaking out to him, sending him so many texts being like, Batman, 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 because Matt Reeves' Batman, there's a red glow there in the third act that is exactly like that. And I was like, oh my God, we're making like a comic book movie. Like, wow. It's just, yeah, that one just got me. And the music and the crescendo. Oh. I think I don't know. I think I'll go with grocery store. And no, not the interaction with the person. I will say that interaction was the easiest to film. It's like I'd been there, done that. So that was easy. But I think just the dancing around the aisles, we had very, earlier on, it looked very different than what we did it now. But again, me just being, I'm like, let's just sit in that. And just watch me go through the aisles. It's like, what is he doing? And why is it, why are we focused on it? And then you realize how, that's essentially the whole point of the film. What happens there at the grocery store is my entire motivation. It's less about this short film that we kind of present as oh, you won Oscars and you did all this stuff. It's all that is not real. What's real was the grocery store. So because of that, that's, to me, that was a reason why I wanted to do this film. To kind of bait and switch y'all. To, y'all saw the pre-show and the photo shoot, and then as the film opens, you're like, okay, got it. They made it. How'd they make it? We did it. And that was the whole point, And the idea was that, again, it's that struggle within that no one could see until you see it, and then got it. So.
And are we in the brain of Jaric and Michael in these? Are we just seeing, is that what you're wanting the viewer to see?
Yeah, so the way the story is presented is from my perspective, and it's not a reliable perspective at all. So, meaning that those interview scenes did not happen. They're not real. And so, like the mansion stuff at the end with the sunglasses, me sitting with the bloody hand, none of that's real. All that is my character. So like even when V is stabbed, right? That's how messed up my character is. In that moment, I'm thinking, well, let's just pretend I made it. I got his bloody hand, and I'm like, I made it, but I still killed someone. And that's how I visualize that happening. So, yeah, it's a lot of it's just in my head, and the reality is just not good in reality, right? Like, I'm sure you're watching, like, what kind of film are they doing? It doesn't even make sense. Like, you know, where's the script, like V says? You know what I'm saying? Like, nothing, everything's very amateurish in terms of the film itself. So we wanted to present it like, okay, they claim they made it, but the film makes no sense. How did they make it? And then you realize that's the whole point. It wasn't about the film. It was about this sick revenge thing from me from an interaction at the grocery store.
Nice to know.
If you could go back 5 years and tell yourself one piece of advice, starting out, what is that piece of advice?
Don't worry about the little stuff and just keep going. I think I could get in my head a lot and just kind of overthink things and just like, like, I don't know. It's, again, like the fact that in this moment, I'm talking to all y'all. It's just like, again, it's a testament. Just don't worry about it. Just, like, we grinded behind closed doors for years. For years. And to be sitting here in front of you guys is almost out-of-body experience, and maybe that's why I'm so comfortable, because it's like, but I mean, it just, hard work just pays off, and don't worry about the little things. Don't worry about, like, no one's responding to your emails, no one's responding to your phone calls, because we went years where we would just reach out and no response, nothing. And then as we did Alone, and then, you know, now we get like a couple responses, where it's like, okay, it's like we're getting some traction. And now it's like a lot of people are responding, but it's like 5 years ago, it was almost like you're just like hitting a wall. Yeah. But it's like, no, don't worry about it. Just keep doing it, you know? And again, if you have love, then it's not, the grind is not hard. You enjoy the grind, so that kind of helps too.
And you probably hear, I mean, everyone probably says this. I mean, for years, it's like, Parker Finn, the director of The Smile, I love him, and we modeled a lot of our last 3 years after what he did with Smile. And he used to say how creators, there's a point where it seems like you're screaming into a void and nobody's listening to you. If you can't get through that, you're not going to get there. And maybe you truly don't love what you do, and so be it. Everyone has their own passion. You got to find your place in the world. And there was a certain point where it didn't matter whether or not people responded. We loved what we were doing, so we just kept on doing it. So if I could go back 5 years, very similar to what Jaric said, I would say don't take it personally. The amount of people where even like when they would reply, they would like miscategorize like this one script Jaric and I had that people actually responded to, and I'm like, that's not what it is.
This is his favorite story. He loves the story.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say names. I'll remember them forever, but I'm not going to say names. But yeah, they just kept calling it this. I'm like, it's not this. What? Are you reading it? And they're probably skimming, right? They're probably skimming. Cool. That's life. But if I go back and be like, no, just keep going. That is the process. And if you can't get over that hump, you can't get over that internal ego, that hurt, then